Good evening, everybody. Very delighted that you've been able to join us again, and especially because it's such a fabulous sunny day, because our rehearsals have been in snow. And so I think Almudena is quite pleased that she's not having to have snowflakes running down in front of her glasses as we're talking. In any case, I'm delighted because Burgos is such a gem of a city and a little bit of a well-kept secret. It's a little bit off the tourist track, except for pilgrims, as it's on the major pilgrim route of the Camino Frances, or the French way. So I'm going to just start by looking at a couple of slides to locate for you where we are, and also to just talk a little bit about the Camino before I hand over to Almudena. Just about to share my screen with you now, so you'll see. You should all be seeing three maps at the moment. So on the map at the top here, you can see I've circled Burgos, which is right up in the north of Spain. It's the provincial capital of the autonomous region of Castilla-Leon. With a population in the city of about 175,000 people. The metropolitan area is about 200,000. So it's quite a small city. And at 865 meters, it's also one of the coldest places in Spain. And I can guarantee that myself personally, and I'm sure that Almudena and Alvaro can as well after the last 2 days. On the bottom map that you can see here too, is just a little map that I've drawn of several of the Camino routes to Santiago De Compostela, and Burgos sits right in the center pretty much of the Camino Frances, or the French way as it's called, which is about 800 kilometers long and travels right through the center of Burgos, which is why Burgos has become such an important city on that route, and also why it has such an important cathedral. This is the principal Camino, really, the French Camino, with all of the others. It's about 500 or so kilometers between Burgos and Santiago De Compostela, where the pilgrims are going to reach the tomb of St. James in that city. The Camino really pretty much began in the 9th century when the first pilgrims started to come to Santiago after the discovery of the remains of the Apostle St. James. Then there was a complete torrent of pilgrims who were coming. About in the 13th century, probably they estimate about 500,000 a year would be coming. And then there was a big decline after that period for a variety of reasons. In 1985, it was declared a World Heritage Site. Santiago was declared a World Heritage Site, and the pilgrimage took off again. So popularity really rose with that World Heritage status. So I'm just also going to show you, before we introduce you to Almudena and she takes over, just a little bit of our route today. So we're basically staying in the central area of the old town, and obviously Almudena is going to be talking a bit about that. She's standing about here at the moment in front of this gate, the Arch of Santa Maria. We're going to walk through that into the big square in front of the cathedral, then up into the main square, the main area of the cathedral, then back down, having a look at the cathedral, one of the other gates, and then walking along this lovely walkway into the Plaza Mayor, and then round the back to see the Statue of El Cid here, and then to finish up here in front of the Casa Del Cordon, just to give you an idea of our route today, and many beautiful things to see along the way. So I'm going to stop sharing now and hand you immediately over to Almudena, because she's got a lot more to say than I do. So I'm just stopping the share for you. Hi, Almudena.
Hi, good morning. Good evening, everybody. So welcome to my hometown, Burgos. This is, as Jeni told you, it's a very old city. Burgos was founded in the year 884 when the king of Leon, Alfonso III, ordered the Count Diego Porcelos to found a walled city in one of the banks of the river Arlanzón. River Arlanzón, it's over there. So this count chose the right side of the river because the river was protecting the city. On the top of the mountain, they decided to build a very big castle in order to control the advance of the Moors to the north of Spain. The construction of the medieval walls lasts 100 years. In the original time, there were 12 doors. Today, there are only 7. And the most important one is in front of us, is Santa Maria's Gate. Till the end of the 15th century, it was so deteriorated. So at the beginning of the 16th century, they decided to rebuild it again as a triumphal arch in honor of the Emperor Charles V. You should know, it was not just a door, right? It was also the town hall of the city of Burgos till the 18th century. In that moment, Burgos was a very big city, and the town hall was too small, so that's why they decided to build a new one in the middle of the Espolón walk that we will find later. But in the main facade, there are a few statues. You can see now in the screen that on top is the Holy Virgin, Santa María la Mayor. She is the patroness of the city of Burgos. And she's also with an angel. As you can see, that angel is holding a castle. He is the protector of the city of Burgos. Down, there are 6 more statues. We can find, for example, the Emperor Charles V. Why he is represented here? Well, he also was visiting the city, and people say that he gave money to rebuild the transit vault of Burgos Cathedral. And on the right side is Diego Porcelos. He was the one who, well, remember, he's the founder of this city in the year 884. Down, there are more statues. In this case, probably the most famous ones related with the city of Burgos. On the right side, with the long beard, El Cid Campador. He's our national hero. And his tomb is in the Central Nave of Burgos Cathedral. We will talk about that later. And on the left side, Fernán González, who was the first independent count here in Castilla. But what we are going to do, we are going to cross this door, and we are going to enter into that medieval area. The arch is decorated with the paintings added in the 16th century by the artist Pedro Jerónimo, and they were representing the goddess Venus and Juno. I was telling you about this door. Remember, it was not just a door. It was also the town hall of the city of Burgos till the 18th century. Inside, there is a very beautiful room. It is called the Poridat room or the secret room. And this Poridat room was a place where the politics in the Middle Ages were normally talking about important things of Burgos. One of the most impressive things that you can find inside, the coffered ceiling. That coffered ceiling was made in the 14th century in oak wood. It is completely painted. The colors are still the originals. And as you can see, it was built in Mudéjar style. You know, the Mudéjares were the Muslims who were living in the north of Spain under Christian dominion, the Muslims who finally decided to be Christians, but they were still working in their own style. Anyway, we are going to cross finally the arch, and here you have a very beautiful view of Burgos Cathedral with this blue sky. As you can see, it's so clean today. We are very, very lucky. The other day was with the snow. But as you can see here, we can find the different volumes of Burgos Cathedral. On the left side, the tower with that spire built in the 15th century. In the center, the lantern. And on the right side, the Constables Chapel. Well, this cathedral is not the first one. The first one was built in Romanesque style. But what happened? Burgos was a very important city on the way to Santiago. So that small cathedral was really, really small. That's why they decided to build this one. Now we are in the square. We have 4 different entrances. The most important ones, the Royal Door, the main facade with the spires. And the other one is Sarmental Door. We are going to be visiting those ones. As you can see, in the center is the lantern, and beneath the lantern is the tomb of El Cid Campador. And on the right side, a big vault, it's the Constables Chapel, that experts say that it's a kind of a small cathedral inside of Burgos Cathedral. This cathedral is not the biggest one in Spain. The biggest one is in Seville. The second one is in Toledo. And this is the 3rd largest one, but probably the first one built in Gothic style with also the cathedral from Avila. And the construction lasts 500 years. So that's why inside we can find Gothic style, Renaissance style, Baroque style. There are 19 chapels. The most important thing, this cathedral has been declared World Heritage by the UNESCO by itself. It's the only one in Spain. The rest of the cathedrals in Spain that were declared Human Heritage or World Heritage were because they were part of the rest of the town center. But the only one by itself, this beautiful cathedral. As we were telling you, we are going to have a look to the main entrance to the Royal Door or Santa Maria's gate. It was always the main facade when the kings were visiting the city of Burgos. The door at the beginning, or the main facade at the beginning, was built in Gothic style, but you're going to find a few changes that we are going to talk to you about in a minute. We have to go to the back because this cathedral is quite high. From the main square in the other side till the top of the spires, there are 89 meters, right? So as you can see, it's quite high. But I was telling you about this main entrance. Well, at the beginning, in the 13th century, there was a Gothic decoration in the lower body. What happened? The stone was so deteriorated. So later they decided to rebuild it again in neoclassical style. In the beginning, everything was decorated with the life of Maria. On the second floor, there is a rose window with that Solomon star, that Jewish star. And over it, there is a balcony, a corridor of different kings of Castilla or kings of Castilla and Leon. The towers were built in the 13th century, but the spires were added later. They were added in the 15th century by the great architect John of Colonia. Well, I was telling you about the Royal Door. Well, we call it Santa Maria's Gate because it's dedicated to the Holy Virgin. Santa Maria, she is in the center, in the fountain. But we also call it the Royal Door because, as you can see, there are 3 doors. The big one in the center was for the king and the queen. When the king and the queen were visiting the city of Burgos, they were using this big door. We are not king or queens, so that's why we have to use the smallers. That big one, we open it only at Easter time to do processions or when a couple get married in the cathedral. The rest of the time is always closed. But if you have a look also to this beautiful square, on top, there is a church. That church is San Nicolas Church, and it is situated in the heart of the Camino de Santiago in Burgos. That's right. Here we can have a look to that main facade. In the center is the statue of San Nicolas with San Sebastian on the left and a saint from Burgos, San Torres. It is said that it was one of the oldest churches here in Burgos. We know that it was built in Romanesque style, but nothing remains of that period. Today it is in Gothic style. Probably the 3 generations of the Colonia family were working there. But the most important thing, the impressive thing that you can find inside is the main altarpiece. Anyway, as you can see, the church is situated in the Camino de Santiago. The pilgrims were, if you have a look to the map on the right side, they were following that purple line, right? It was the town center. In that Fernán González Street were situated the most important palaces, and normally the most richful families and merchants had their houses there. The UNESCO, declared the Camino World Heritage. During the Middle Ages, it was crowded. Later, it was forgotten, but today it's also very famous, and too many pilgrims are still going to Santiago de Compostela. Normally, on summertime, this is also crowded. Well, inside of that San Nicolas Church, there is a very beautiful altarpiece. Normally altarpieces are made of wood, but in this case, this one was carved with limestone from Ontoria de la Cantera, the same limestone that they used to build this beautiful cathedral. As you can see, it's completely covered with decoration. It's in flamboyant Gothic style. In the center is the statue of San Nicolas, full of details, the embroidery, decoration of the clothing, but we can find around him a few reliefs, like the ones that you can see in the photograph. For example, when they elected San Nicolas to be a bishop, or some miracles that he did in that time. This is probably one of the most impressive altarpieces carved in stone that you will ever find. Remember, the 3 generations were working there. Well, we were talking about the Camino. In Burgos Cathedral and also in the city, you're going to find many representations of St. James all the time. Also, inside of the cathedral, there are many chapels dedicated to St. James. But also the pilgrims, where they were visiting the cathedral, they normally pray in a small chapel. It's dedicated to Santo Cristo de Burgos, and it's a special chapel for pilgrimage. In a way, in the cathedral, there is a curious thing that we want to show you. It's the fly catcher, the Papa Moscas, and it normally works at the pile hour. So we are going to get into the cathedral. Okay. All right. All right. So if you have a look up there, you can find the Papa Moscas, the fly catcher. It is a clock, right? The clock was made in the 14th century, in the year 1384. But the decoration was added later. It was added in the 16th century. As you can see, it is a strange man dressed in red. On the right side of that strange man, there is a balcony with a small boy. We call him Martinillo, Little Martin. And Little Martin ring the bell at the quarter of hour. The most important thing happens at the pile hour, at the sharp hour, because the fly catcher, the man in red, he will ring the bell. If it is 10 o'clock, 10 times. If it is 12 o'clock, 12 times. But he will also open and close his mouth 12 times. So it's really, really funny to come here to look at the tourists who are looking at the fly catcher, because when they are looking at the fly catcher, it is so high situated, it is 15 meters high. They are looking at him like this, with the open mouth, right? That's why we say fly catcher down and fly catcher up. Why we call him fly catcher? Well, in that time, in the 16th century, there was a small bird with orange and red colors. And when that bird wanted to eat, he was normally flying over the flowers, open and closing the mouth, and eating the flies and catching the flies very quickly, right? That's why we call him fly catcher, Papa Moscas. Well, from here, you have a view of the cathedral. You can have a view of the Central Nave, right? And as you can see, it's quite high. This Central Nave, it's very simple decorated, but the most important thing is the lantern that you will find inside, right? That lantern was built in the 16th century. It's not the first one. The first lantern was built by the architect John of Colony and his son Simon of Colony. The problem, it was very big, it was so heavy, so it fell down. This second one was built by an architect from Burgos called Juan de Vallejo. As you can see, it's so beautiful. It has 3 floors. The first floor is an octagonal ground plan with a different coat of arms of the bishop, of the city of Burgos, the emperor. Then there are 2 floors of glass windows, and finally the vault. And as you can see, that vault with an 8-pointed star. We can still find that Mudéjar influence in the 16th century. As you can see, it's completely open. It was the first completely open vault built in Spain. It's quite high from the floor till the top. There are completely 59 meter high. That's why this architect had to work during 34 years. And down beneath is the grave of El Cid Campador, right? As you can see, El Cid was our national hero. I told you that he was situated, the tomb in the cathedral. Well, as you can see, the tomb is very, very simple. Well, El Cid was born in Burgos, not in the capital, in a small village called Vivar. He spent all his life fighting in the reconquest in Spain, sometimes against the Muslims, but also sometimes against the Christians. Finally, he died on the coast in Valencia, and he was buried there for the first time. After Valencia, he was buried in Burgos in a small monastery called San Pedro de Cardeña. Later, during the Independence War, during the French War, Napoleon's soldiers built for him a big tomb in the town center. So they took the skeleton of El Cid from the monastery and they placed it in the new mausoleum. When the Spanish troops expelled Napoleon's soldiers, we took again the bones from the monastery and we placed it again in the town center. Well, I have to confess, El Cid had 13 different tombs. Finally, the last one, the number 14, is that one that you can find today here in this cathedral. And we hope to let him rest in peace, right? As you can see, he has been traveling so much during all his life and death. It's all
and also, just to say, I just put that image up there for everybody, because every time I go here with Almudena, she points out that Spanish mothers come here and they see this painting of him in the cloisters of the cathedral, and all say, "Oh, we wish that our daughters would marry such a handsome El Cid."
That's right.
Sorry,
as you can see. So no, but it's true. I remember when the artist Pedro Candido was working in the cloister, and the local guys and the ladies normally ask him, "Peter, in which person did you inspire?" And he said, "In my son." And I remember all the local guys asking him, "Please introduce us your son one day," right? Because as you can see, he was so handsome. Well, anyway, if you remember, I told you before that here there is a special chapel for the pilgrims, Santo Cristo's Chapel. Now, there are a few people praying. There's always people praying here. Alvaro is going to show you the statue of that Christ. Well, the tradition said that the statue was rescued in the middle of the Cantabric Sea during a very big storm. And in the moment the sailors rescued the statue, the storm stopped. So they thought that Christ saved them from a certain death. One tradesman who was traveling with them decided to give it as a present to Burgos Cathedral, and then Burgos Cathedral built the chapel. The statue was made in the 14th century. It is completely covered with buffalo's leather. It has natural hair, beard, and fingernails, and it is also completely articulated, even the bones of the hands and feet. Why? Because the statue was used in the Middle Ages to do representations of the Passion of Jesus Christ. So it's tremendously realistic. Too many people say that he makes miracles. That's why it's always someone praying there. But it was said that the pilgrims who arrived to Burgos with an illness, those who thought that they couldn't continue the travel, they came here, and after the praying, they have more strength to continue to Santiago de Compostela. That's why you can find there the symbols of the pilgrims, the staff, the shell, and the cross. Because as I told you, it was a special chapel for pilgrimage. Okay, so from here, I'm going to show you one more thing. I want to have a look to the triforium, right? We were telling you that in Burgos, too many pilgrims were coming here. Sometimes they needed more space to sleep. Well, in this cathedral, pilgrims were allowed to be sleeping in those triforiums when the hospitals were completely full, right? When they were crowded. So from here, we are going to visit the other main facade. We are going to visit Sarmental Door. Oh. Well, wait. Nice, the flycatcher working.
You can't quite see his mouth, unfortunately.
Well, I promise you he's open and closing the mouth. Anyway, I can do a demonstration for you.
Great.
Okay, so we are leaving.
Thanks, guys. That's great.
All right. So, again, outside, we were talking about that Camino, And in the other side, in the middle of that street dedicated to the Camino de Santiago in Burgos, Fernán González Street, there is another beautiful entrance. It is called Coroneria's Door, or the Apostles' Door. And that facade, yes, you can find it there. Well, in the tympanum, we can have a look to Jesus Christ. Well, as you can see, he is represented as a judge. On both sides, the Holy Virgin and Saint John, they are praying, they are begging him to be mercy. Why? Because down, if you have a look at it, there is a small door open. That's the door of heaven. And on the right side is the Archangel Michael, who is weighing the souls with a scale. So those people who have a good soul, they cross that door and they go to heaven and enjoy. But those who are bad people, they go to the right side, directly to hell. In the lower body, we can find the 12 apostles. The problem, this main facade was on the north side of the city. So due to the bad weather, due to the windy area, the statues were so deteriorated. But as you can see, there is also a small door. Well, inside of that area, there is a very beautiful thing of Burgos Cathedral, probably one of the most important monuments, the golden staircase. That's right. As you can see, it's too big. People usually ask, why do you have a staircase so big in the middle of Burgos Cathedral? There is an important reason. This cathedral was built over the mountain, so they need to save the uneveness, the different levels between the main square, where we are now, and the Camino de Santiago in the other side. Remember where St. Nicolas Church was situated. So at the beginning, there was a normal staircase made of wood. It was very simple. Bishop Fonseca ordered to destroy that one and build this imperial staircase. It was designed by an architect from Burgos called Diego de Siloe in Renaissance style. At the beginning of the
also, Almudena, that
yes.
Diego de Siloe also designed the cathedral in Granada as well.
That's right, that's right. He was working in the south of Spain, also in Jaén. He was so famous. His father was Gil de Siloe. He normally was carving in Gothic style. He got married with a lady from Burgos, and when Diego was a child, his father sent him to Italy. He was working in Italy. He brought the new works of Bramante. So he brought this new cultural movement to Burgos, the Renaissance style. The problem in Burgos, people from Burgos disagreed with this new art, and as you say, he finally had to work to go to the south of Spain, to Jaén or Granada, where he was really, really recognized and famous. Well, that golden staircase was used during many centuries. The problem, it was a staircase for the pilgrims. Only the pilgrims could use it because it was a special door made for them. The problem, not only the pilgrims use it, also the Burgaleses who were living in the castle, when they wanted to go to the market that was situated in this main square in the other side of the cathedral, they didn't want to go around all Burgos Cathedral. What did they do? They came down by that staircase and they crossed the Central Nave. Imagine, it was worse at the return. We are talking about the market of the 16th century. So they came back with animals, with vegetables, chatting. So if the lamb was running in the middle of the mass, bad luck. I always said that in that time people said it was not a mass, it was a mess, right? Well, in front of us, probably the most important entrance in Burgos Cathedral, Sarmental Door. It was said that too many architects who have already worked in Amiens in France came to Burgos to carve, to design this main facade. In this case, in the tympanum, we can have a look to Jesus Christ. As you can see, he's represented in this case as a king, crowned. With his right hand, he's blessing us. With the left hand, he's holding the Holy Bible, while the four evangelists around him are taking notes. The four evangelists are also with their symbols. And down, the 12 apostles, they have got expressive faces. They are talking among them. All of them are carrying books. Most of them are reading those books. But if you start from the right side and count the number 4, You can have a look at it in the photograph. As you can see, he's St. James, and he's sewing something with his finger. He's sewing 5 cells. Why? Because he's talking to St. John, the youngest one, and he's telling him, well, if you want to learn more about the Holy Bible, you shouldn't read it in a book. You should be a pilgrim and go to Santiago de Compostela. Remember, I told you that in Burgos, in this cathedral, and in the city, we have plenty of representations of St. James. Down in the center, in the Malleum, Bishop Mauricio, who ordered to build this cathedral. Remember, in Burgos, we had 2 cathedrals. The first one was too small, as it was noticed during the wedding of the King Ferdinand III and the princess from Germany, Beatrice of Suabia. So after the wedding, the king, the queen, and bishop decided to build this one. Because Burgos was a very important city all the way to Santiago de Compostela. So many pilgrims, many tradesmen, many people came here, increasing that medieval population. So that's why they decided to build this big one. Down, we have also more statues on each side. On the left side, we can have a look to the prophets Aaron and Moses, and on the right side, the pillars of the church. Well, at the beginning, there was a Gothic decoration. The problem, the statues were so deteriorated, so they decided to rebuild them again in Baroque style. Due to the deterioration of the symbols, we can only recognize on the left side the prophets Aaron and Moses, who were representing the Old Testament, the synagogue, and on the right side, the 2 pillars of the church, St. Peter and St. Paul, right? They were representing the New Testament or the actual church. One more thing, a curious thing, if you have a look to the archivolts here, you can find all men of the Apocalypse, but also there are angels and archangels playing instruments. One curiosity, many experts in music have already studied this kind of Gothic facades in order to know what kind of music instruments there were at the Middle Ages. So it's quite curious because there are plenty of them and most of them are completely different. All right, so now we are going to leave a little bit the cathedral and we are going to enjoy the sun today and enjoy the beautiful promenade of the Espolón. Jeni told you.
Almudena, I have a question. What's the significance of the shell that we see as the symbol of St. James?
Okay, the symbol. Right, today, most of the pilgrims, we can find them and they are walking with the cells since the very beginning, but not in the Middle Ages. In the Middle Ages, people start working and then finally arrive to Santiago de Compostela to see the remains of St. James. But they had to continue till the end of the world, till the ocean, what we call in that time and today, Finisterre, right? And in Finisterre, they normally collect a special cell that was in that area. You can't find that kind of cell in the rest of the coast, right? It's a very special cell. We call it Vieira shell, right? And the pilgrims normally collect it and then came back home. Today, to go do the Camino and came back, with the train, the bus, or a flight, it's very easy. But remember, when people were doing the Camino in that time, maybe they spent years. So when they came back home, people ask, what have you been doing? And they say, I have been visiting the tomb of St. James. I don't believe you. I can't believe you. Yes, I can prove it. I have my own cell, right? So it was also the symbol to prove that they have been in St. James' tomb. I don't know if I answered your question.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you. Fantastic.
Okay. Well, I was telling you, and Jeni told you, well, you saw it the other day. It was snowing, right? Today the sun is shining, but Burgos is one of the coldest cities in Spain. At winter time, we are normally under 0 degrees. So we want to enjoy what is happening on the street. The problem, this area is quite cold. So that's why the Burgaleses and the people who live in the north of Spain found a solution. They decided to close the balconies with these beautiful miradores. They are very typical in Burgos and also very typical in the north of Spain. In Spanish, mirador, mirar, means to look at. So people could still know what was happening downstairs in the street, but they were enjoying the warmth of their houses, right? It was a really good solution. I told you, Burgos, one of the coldest cities. As a joke, we say that summertime in Burgos lasts from the festivity of St. James, is the 25th of July, to the festivity of Santain, is the 26th of July. So one day, if we are lucky, it's just one day. And one more thing, here, our friend, he is a pilgrim, right? He was so tired. This is a statue that was made by an artist from Burgos, completely made in bronze. I don't know if you can see it today, but there is a cell here in the center, right? Remember that symbol. And as you can see also, you can find sores everywhere, injuries, bounds. Why? Because this artist, he was trying to symbolize how hard is the Camino de Santiago, right? Too many people were going to St. James, and too many people death while they were trying to go there. Sorry, died when they were trying to go there. But as I told you, we are going to enjoy the beautiful promenade of the Espolón. Now everything is quite quiet, but also
unfortunately, our favorite coffee shop that you're just about to pass on the left is closed.
That's right. It's on the left side. When Jeni is visiting Burgos with the groups, we normally have coffee here. There are two bars, two cafeterias now. Most of them are closed due to COVID, but I hope in a few months everything will be better. Well, the Espolón Walk, the most emblematic, the most famous promenade here in Burgos. Remember, you're going to have a look at it now. We are in the other side of Santa Maria's, right, gate. Well, the construction of this promenade was built more or less at the time of the illustrated classes, right? They wanted to clean the area that was situated between Santa Maria's gate and St. Paul Bridge in the other side. In this area were also situated the medieval fortress, the medieval walls, but today you're not going to find them. Why? Because they thought in that time that they were ugly and that they were deteriorated. So they directly decided to destroy them, to knock them down. And they decided to build big buildings for the most richful families. In this promenade, you're going to find buildings of different style, like neoclassical style, modernist, or also classicist. But the most important thing, or the most famous thing, the trees. These Oriental plane trees, they are very similar to the sycamore trees, right? They were planted here in the year 1931. And they are very, very famous today. No leaves, right? We are at winter time, but on summertime, it's full of leaves, and it is everything is covered. Here, there are many cafeterias, so people really like to enjoy and have a coffee here on summertime. This, yes, you can find here the photographs. You can see it's so beautiful. Well, the plane trees, we have to take care of them. Why? Because in this promenade and the next one, there are more than 150 plane trees connected by their branches. So we have to take care of them, because if one of them gets sick, all of them get sick. So that's why they are under protection. Well, I told you, they decided to build here the new palaces and the new houses for the most richful families. But I want to show you how was the city of Burgos in the medieval time. So here, you can find a map of the city of Burgos at the very beginning, right? Burgos, remember, was founded on the right side of the river Arlanzón. On the top of the mountain, they decided to build a very big castle in order to control the advance of the Moors to the north of Spain. And as you can see, all the city was protected by the medieval fortress. Now we are here in this small door. This door that you can find represented in this map here, right? Here. is the door that you can find in front of us, the stagecoach's door, right? Okay, there. Well, why the stagecoach's door? Because here there was not a promenade. Here there was a kind of medieval highway that was connecting Madrid with Bayona in France. So the stagecoaches, they came here, they crossed that door, they changed horses, and they continued the travel to France. The problem, due to the traffic, there were too many deaths. So people from Burgos, the Burgaleses, they wanted to change the road from the right side of the river to the left side. But there was a problem. It was a royal road. So they had to ask for permission to the King Charles III. The town council wrote him a letter, and the king was thinking about it, but very, very slowly, because 10 years later, he allowed us to do the change, and he also gave us as a present the 4 statues that you can find here in this small square. Those statues that you can find here are kings or people that had a special relation with the city of Burgos. But remember, at the very beginning, they were situated in the Royal Palace in Madrid. And at the end of the promenade, you have a view of the music bandstand on the left side. The kiosco, it was built in modernist style by Saturnino Ryde. He was the municipal architect. And at the end, the back side of the main theater that we will find later. But again, we are going to cross that stagecoach's door, and we are going to have a look to the main square of the city of Burgos, La Plaza Mayor. When we were talking about the Camino, I don't know if I told you before, but in the Camino, well, in the 13th century in Burgos, there were 14,000 inhabitants, but there were also 34 bars, 34 taverns. I don't want you to think that we were drunkards, right? No. Very important. In Burgos, there was a floating population of more than 250,000 pilgrims each year. Those pilgrims needed to eat, so that's why there were many bars and taverns. That's why we need them. Today we have plenty of them, but we go because we really like to enjoy the Ribera del Duero wine. Well, we are under the arcades of the stagecoach's door, under the arcades of the town hall, and I want to show you something, a curious thing. Here, those marks, the red line marks that you can find here. I told you, Burgos is one of the coldest cities in Spain. We have snow every year. So in the month of May and June, the snow melts down, and the River Arlanzón grows so much. Those are the marks of the greatest swells of River Arlanzón, the marks of the floods. The highest one in June in the year 1874. This is the last one, 1930. From this one, we have photographs and there are video recordings. And we know that in that time, in the newspapers, they said that Burgos was the Venice of Spain. Imagine all the town center completely full of water. But here, our Plaza Mayor. Okay, so at the beginning in Burgos, there was no Plaza Mayor, right? There were small houses for the people and inhabitants of the city of Burgos. In the 15th century, people started to sell their things here. That's why this square was known as the Little Market, because only staple products were sold here. But later, in modern times, the town council, they wanted to build here a kind of big main square like the big capitals. They wanted to have 8 big buildings like the yellow one that you can find over there, the old casino. What happened? In Burgos, there were not too many rich full families in order to afford it. So finally, they had to add buildings of a lesser quality, like those ones that you can find over there that will be probably restored next year. Anyway, since the very beginning, the town council asked for one thing to the architects. If you want to build here a new building, that building must have portico, must have archery. Why? Because here was situated the market of the city. So on summertime or in the spring, in a good day, people could sell their things here outside. At winter time or in a rainy day, under the arcades. That's how they could be using this main square during all the year. Here was situated the market, so that's why if you have a look to the building in front of us, I think Jeni has a better photographs. It's a modernist. That's right. This one, that's right. This is a modernist building that was designed by a modernist architect called Vicente Lamperez. And as you can see on top, it's the statue of the god Mercury. He's the god of business. He's the god of trade. And he's looking for the good business here. He's looking directly to the town hall of the city of Burgos. Remember, the first one was Santa Maria's Gate. It was very, very small, so that's why they decided to build this second one. Neoclassical style. There are straight lines. And in the lower body, on both sides of this main facade, you can find also the coat of arms of the city of Burgos. There is a crowned king with 5 castles around him. Why? Because Burgos was the head, was the capital of the kingdom of Castilla. So that's why you can find this symbol, right? 5 castles, and of course the king in the center. Also, in front of the main facade, the statue of the King Charles III in the center. Why? When he allowed us to do the change of that medieval road to say thanks, Burgaleses, people from Burgos, paid for the construction of this statue. It was made in bronze, and as you can see, he's always supervising everything in this main square. The main square was also a place where people came here to enjoy festivities, right? So it has been always the heart of the city of Burgos. But if you want to enjoy something more, also the tapas, our gastronomy. There are 2 very important streets if you want to go for tapas. That small one under the roof, it's a very narrow street, but there you can find typical dishes from Burgos. Probably the most famous one is the black sausage, the black pudding from Burgos that we call morcilla. And also, well, that morcilla is made with pork blood, also with rice and a special onion from the region. But you can also find 2 tapas very famous, like the cojonudos. What cojonudo means? As you can see, it's a slice of bread, a small square egg, and a slice of really spicy chorizo with red pepper. That's the male version. If you want to have the ladies version, is the other one with the morcilla. But normally, if you want to go for tapas, we normally ask for a couple. We eat both. Down, you can find the typical suckling lamb from Burgos. It is made in a...
Absolutely delicious. It's totally delicious. We always go together and have it.
Yes, you should try it. At least one in your life. You have to try the suckling lamb made in a rustic or in a traditional oven, because the taste is really, really good. And on the left side, what we call espadrilles, right? Well, it is a slice of crusty bread with Iberian ham and also olive oil. It's really, really delicious. But we also have desserts like the grandpa's dessert, and that's made with fresh cheese from Burgos, with honey and also walnuts. Well, we are going to get to the other side of the Espolon walk, the Espolon promenade, and here we can find 2 very important buildings. One of them is the Provincial Palace, and the second one is the main theater. Sorry, we have few tracks here. They are doing...
Another question for you. Another question for you, Almudena. Why is the town called Burgos?
Why is there? Sorry, 1 second.
Why is the city called Burgos? Where does the name come from?
Okay, the name of the city. Very important. Well, Burgos, just Burgos without S, means a fortress, a military fortress, a military position. Remember, in that time, they were in the Reconquest. So they were installing a kind of a small fortress. But later, they decided to build a very, very big and strong castle here. That castle was controlling the other 5 castles. Do you remember about the coat of arms that I was telling you before? That king with the 5 castles around him, right? Well, the main one was in Burgos. So that one was controlling the rest of 5. That's why we finally said Burgos with an S, Burgos, right? Because it was the main castle that was controlling the north of the peninsula at the time of the Reconquest.
Thank you. I'm just going to show everybody where we are at the moment. I'm just going to show the map again so that you can see where we are. So we've walked through the main square and come down here, and Almudena is just standing in front of this building here now. So I'll hand back to you just so that you could get a little feeling about where you are. Okay.
Okay. So we are in the Provincial Palace. This one was built in the 19th century by the architects Villanueva and Calleja in a classicist style. The design was, the building was built in the same place where the prisons were situated at the time of the King Charles III. In that time here, were the buildings that form part of that prison. That prison had 3 floors. In the lower body were situated the prisoners who had committed serious crimes, and they were in isolated cells. On the second floor were situated the distinguished prisoners. They were in more comfortable cells, and the last floor, the 3rd floor, was the cells for ladies and a small hospital. The problem, as you can see, this building is situated in the heart of the city of Burgos, very near to the cathedral. It was a little bit deteriorated, so that's why they decided to destroy it, and later they built this provincial palace. The use of this palace, well, when the politics of the city of Burgos, when they have to talk about important things of the city, they use the town hall in the other side. But if they have to talk about important things of the province of Burgos or the community, they use this one, right? Also here, there is a beautiful door that I want to show you. It's in the back side of the theater, and it was built in modernist style. Later, we are going to show you the main entrance and main facade, right? But I want to show you the modernist door. Alvaro, 1 second, here, this door. All right, here is the modernist door that I was telling you. It is written Salón de Recreo. And as you can see, it is carved in oak wood. It is still the original. It was added later at the beginning of the 20th century. And inside there is a very beautiful room with a ceiling completely painted with frescoes. But it was the Salón de Recreo. It was the area where men usually went inside for gambling and playing cards. Later, they decided to add another cafeteria at the back of the theater where ladies were allowed to get inside. Today, it is completely restored, and inside we celebrate civil weddings, only civil weddings. And one more thing that I didn't tell you. In this provincial palace, we can still find the signature of the architect, Ángel Calleja. Normally, in a civil or on a civil building in that time, architects were not normally adding their signature, but here, Calleja, he did wanted to add his name, and you can find it here in the main entrance also. I don't know, you can find the name written over there, Ángel Calleja, 1870. That's right. Here you can find the name.
Almudena, I think we'll show the Zanetti mural from inside as well.
Oh yes, inside there is a beautiful mural painted by the artist from Burgos called Bella Zanetti. He probably is one of the most famous of the city. He won a Guggenheim fellowship, and he went to New York, and finally he did his most important work in New York at the United Nations headquarters. But here in this Provincial Palace, we have another mural painted by him. It's quite big, 200 meters square of paintings, completely dedicated to the life of El Cid and also the poem of El Cid. Remember, this city is really connected with El Cid Campador. That's why in this square, you're going to find the statue of El Cid. This statue was built in the 20th century, in the year 1955, when the town council of the city of Burgos decided to build a kind of big avenue dedicated to the life of El Cid. Remember, I told you that he was born in Burgos, not in the capital, in a small village called Vivar. He has spent all his life fighting in the Reconquest. Here, as you can see, is riding his horse, Babieca, and with his sword, Tizona, he's pointing to St. Paul's Bridge, which is the oldest one here in the city of Burgos. And also here, on the left, the main entrance, the main facade of the main theater, El Teatro Principal. In Burgos, there were many theaters. The problem, they were very small because they were inside of the medieval fortress. So during the kingdom of the Queen Isabel II, they decided to build this one. As you can see, the lower body was built with limestone, masonry stone of a really good quality. The second floor, no more stone, only in the balconies. Why? What happened? Well, there was no money. And finally, it was finished with materials of a lesser quality. During the Civil War in Spain, it was so deteriorated. So that's why they decided to restore it. On the third floor, there is a modern library, and still we celebrate music concerts inside. That's right. Here you can have a look of that typical Isabelline style theater. It has a form of a horseshoe arch. The quality of the sound is very good, but not if you want to see a theater. Why? Because you can, if you are situated on the sides, you cannot see the whole stage. But I was telling you about this bridge and the river. From here, you can have a look to the river Arlanzón. River Arlanzón crosses the city along 15 kilometers, but it is longer. It is 131. This river flows in Arlanza and then ends in Pisuerga River in Valladolid. So the river also forms part of the city. We were talking about this bridge. This bridge is the oldest one of the city of Burgos. It was built for the first time in the 13th century by the brotherhoods of the 13 Knights. The problem, it was made in the wood, and it was so deteriorated. So later they decided to rebuild it again with masonry stone. The decoration of the statues were added in the 20th century. Remember, those figures that you can find here are people that have relation with the life of El Cid. Like, for example, his wife, Jimena, in front of us. I think Jeni has a better photograph. That's right. As you can see, Sofia Loren represents very, very good Jimena, right? And in the other side, in front of Jimena, is the statue of his son, Diego, right? But as I was telling you, all the people represented here appear also in the poem. The poem of El Cid is very important because it was the first written book, right? So written book of the 13th century. written in Romance language. The Romance language is like a primitive Castilian, right? A primitive Spanish. It was kept in Burgos during many centuries. In the 18th century, they decided to take it to Madrid. They wanted to study the book, but it was never returned to the city of Burgos. Today, you can find the poem of El Mío Cid in the National Library in Madrid. And in the other side of the river, the Museum of Human Evolution. Well, in Burgos, we have three things that were declared World Heritage by the UNESCO. The most important thing is Burgos Cathedral. The second thing is St. James Path. And the last thing is Atapuerca. Atapuerca, it's 15 kilometers far from the city of Burgos. Jeni can point you, as you can see, it's very, very near to Burgos. It's no far.
This is Borgos here on the left, and this is Atapuerca, the archaeological site here in this area that I'm circling.
That's right.
That Almudena is talking about. Okay, sorry, Almudena, back to you.
No, it's okay. It's perfect. So as you can see, it's very, very near to the city of Burgos. Well, in that archaeological site, they have rescued the fossils, the remains of the oldest European man. It's a new species. It's called Homo antecessor, 1 million years old. He is the grandfather of Europe, and well, it's huge, right? Because also in that archaeological site of Atapuerca, the experts, they have found remains of 4 different species: antecessor, Neanderthal, Heidelbergensis, and Sapiens. That never happens before. It's the only place where we have already found those remains. That's why it's very important. Here in the photograph, you can find the remains of Miguelon, that is Heidelbergensis. We're talking about 500,000 years old, right? But it's a huge archaeological site. The experts normally work during 1 month. And with the remains that they have got in 1 month, they could be studying for 1 year complete, right? So that's why this archaeological site is so important. And also
people can visit, also you can take visits out to the site as well, have guided visits, very interesting. And the museum itself is really wonderful, not only the design, but the way it's all been set up. This very modern building by a Spanish architect.
That's right. It was made by an architect called Juan Navarro Valdevez. He won the National Award of Architects in the 2014. He was the one who won also the design in order to build it here in Burgos. But we call it this. It is a complex of 3 different buildings. In the center is the museum. On the right side is the conference auditorium of human evolution, and on the left side, it's the laboratory, the research center of human evolution. It's huge, complex, but you have to understand that Atapuerca is a very, very important archaeological site. And now we are arriving to another famous building. This is La Casa del Cordon, right? And La Casa del Cordon, it's probably the most important civil building that you are going to find here in Burgos. It was built at the end of the 15th century and the beginning of the 16th century. And it was ordered to be built by the Constables of Castilla. Remember, the Constables of Castilla were Pedro Fernández de Velasco and his wife Mencía de Mendoza and Figueroa. Remember, they have got a very special chapel in Burgos Cathedral. And that's why, that one. It's situated on the right side of the cathedral with a very big vault with a small lantern. But experts say that this chapel is a kind of a small cathedral inside of Burgos Cathedral. Why? Because it has all the details. It was built like the big French cathedrals with 3 different floors. The triforium, the arches, 2 floors of glass windows. One thing, the glass windows that you can find in Burgos, those ones that you can see here in this photograph are still originals of the 16th century. But inside of the cathedral, the only one that we have of the original time is a rose window of the 13th century. Why? During the Independence War, during the French War, Napoleon soldiers blow up the castle. The castle is situated at the back of the church on the top of the mountain. So with the explosion, all the glass windows fell down. The rose window of Sarmental door wasn't destroyed because the lantern protected as a shield. But here you have a photograph of the tomb of the constables, Pedro Fernando and his wife Mencía. Peter is the one on the right? Peter was always fighting in the reconquest in Spain or helping in politics to the King Ferdinand. His wife Mencía, she was in Burgos. She was a very, very intelligent lady. She really liked traveling around Europe. She could speak Latin so fluently, right? It was very, very difficult. One time, when he was in a battle, she wrote to him a very beautiful letter. And she promised to her husband 3 things. First thing, a hunting palace outside of the city of Burgos where he could go for hunting and relaxing. Second thing, a big house in the town center, the one that you can find here in front of us, Casa del Cordon, to live when they were staying in Burgos. And the last thing, a big chapel in Burgos Cathedral to rest in peace. As you can see, the promises were really good, right? The problem, Peter died and he didn't see no one of the promises. Anyway, she finished for him the 3 things. That's why, if you have a look again to the photograph of the tomb, you're going to find...
Hang on a sec, I'm just getting it for you.
Yes, okay.
There you go. There you go.
All right. Here you can have a look to the photograph. And as you can see, there is a small dog on the foot of the lady. Why? Because the dog is always symbolizing loyalty, fidelity. In this case, loyalty or fidelity of the lady to her husband, of the fidelity of Mencía to her husband, Pedro Fernández. Well, I told you, she finished the 3 things. She ordered to build this beautiful palace. It was ordered to be built by the family Colonia, Simon de Colonia. But it's important because it's the only civil building where you are going to find pinnacles. There are also gargoyles. There are also heraldic lions, but just for decoration. They are not necessary. They are just for decoration. And it is a civil building. It was also a kind of fortress palace because on both sides you can find the towers, right? They were still trying to symbolize the castle. And in the main entrance, there is a Franciscan cord. This cordon, this Franciscan cord, is because the lady, Mencía, she was so devoted to the Franciscan order and to Francis of Assisi. Inside of the Franciscan cord, we can find the coat of arms of the constables. Perfect. On the left side, the one of Peter with lions and castles, and on the right one, the one of his wife, Mencía. But as you can see, each one is flanked by a inscription, the motto of each one. The motto on the left of Peter, it's a good death does honor to a whole life. You know, that is a quote of Francesco Petrarch. He was an Italian poet. He was one of the first humanists. And on the right side, the motto of the lady, Mencía, is nothing lasts forever except the love for God. Down there is a long inscription where is written that this palace of Casa del Cordon was ordered to be built by Pedro Fernández de Velasco and his wife Mencía Mendoza, the second counts of Ara. Down on the left, there is an inscription, very important inscription. Why? Well, the constables were using the palace, but not only them. When the kings were visiting the city of Burgos, they were normally staying in this palace. As for example, so Alvaro is showing you here a writing. It is saying, in this house, the Constables of Castilla and the kings, the Catholic kings, received Christopher Columbus after his second voyage to the Americas. Also here, we celebrate the wedding of the King Philip IV and Isabel of Bourbon, or the funeral of Philip the Handsome, and remember, she was the husband of the Queen of Castilla, Joanna I. She was known as Joanna the Crazy. But the most important thing here, the Spanish monarchs signed the Laws of Burgos. That document, it is known as the first treaty of human rights, right? In that moment, the Spanish monarchs, they wanted to abolish the slavery in the Indias, and also they wanted to forbid the mistreatment and the abuses to the natives. That's why that document is quite famous. The problem with this building, the palace was used during many centuries. The problem, at the end of the 17th century, kings were not visiting Burgos anymore, and the palace was used also as a stable. On the right side, there were kind of small hostels of a really low quality. It was a very beautiful palace, but the problem, the restoration was too expensive. Well, in the 20th century, they tried to do, at the beginning of the 20th century, they tried to do the first restoration. It was made by the architect Vicente Lamperez. Remember, the one who built that modernist building of Mercury in the main square. And he decided to add these beautiful balconies, the ones that you can find in the photograph, right? They are neo-Gothic balconies added in the 20th century. But today, many people think that they were built in the original time. They are really, really good connected with the idea of that former palace. And the problem, he had this building, these balconies, but the building was not restored inside. The restoration was too expensive, so finally the town council, they decided to sell it for a symbolic price to the most important bank of the city. The bank restored it. Today it is a bank, but we have a small part of the building that is a museum. And the most important thing is always free entrance for everybody. That's right. Here you can have a look to the inside. It was a beautiful courtyard. It was completely open. It is said that in the center there was a big fountain with gardens, and the decoration of that balconies were always decorated with the symbols of the constables, the coat of arms of Mencia and the one of Peter. It is the artist was trying to copy the big palaces that you can find in Italy in Renaissance time. The problem today, it's a bank, so we are not allowed to do recordings inside. And one curiosity, here in the center of this square, there is a fountain. It was said that when the kings of Spain were visiting the city of Burgos, or the kings of Castilla, or the Catholic kings were visiting the city, from this fountain, that of course was not the one that was in that time, instead of bubbling water, it was bubbling wine all the time. So Burgaleses were very, very happy when the kings were visiting the city of Burgos. I don't know why they don't keep with these kind of traditions, right? At the back, at the back, there is a famous restaurant. It's one of the oldest in Burgos. It's Casa Ojeda. I told you about those beautiful miradores. In this case, it's really, really good, decorated with that oak wood, the glass windows, and of course, the traditional oven. Here you can find the tiles, right? Because this is a place where you can really enjoy suckling roast lamb made with in the traditional way, right? Now it's in the morning, it's not working, but if you came at 12 o'clock, it is warm because they are still because they are preparing the oven, right?
Oh, and we have a question. What does it mean on? What do the words mean on the oven?
Means okay. Horno. Horno means oven, right? And the leña, that means a wood-fired oven, right? And Ojeda was the surname of the person who was the owner. This restaurant was built at the beginning of the 20th century. It's more than 100 years, and they preserve it inside like it was at the modernist time, right? Probably is one of the most famous in Burgos. You can smell it when you are outside, when you are walking in the street. You can smell the roast lamb, and also the smell the tasty, because inside they prepare also red peppers from the area, and they are delicious. You have to come to Burgos and enjoy.
Yes, definitely. It's one of the best places to have the lechazo, the lamb. It's really delicious. So we usually come. So you've all got to come with me so we can go and have a big banquet at this little restaurant.
That's right. I don't know if you have any special question. I was telling you about that heraldic, right? If Alvaro showed you the tower on top, you can find those beautiful pinnacles and also the lions. Remember, it was just for decoration because it was a civil building. And also, you can find a kind of sun in the balcony in the center, right? That sun with the inscriptions AHS. That was symbolizing Jesus Christ is the savior of the humanity. It was a Bernardine anagram. Who was the patron of the Velasco family? He was St. Andrews. That's why St. Andrews is on top in the center. Maybe from here, I don't know if you can find the statue. He is in the center, right? There is a big statue. And he's St. Andrews, who was the patron of the Constables of Castilla.
Fantastic. Thank you, Almudena. I'm just wondering if anybody has any questions.
All right.
I think we've got one here. I've got a question for you. How was Burgos under Franco?
Okay. Well, remember during the Civil War, the area of Burgos was the place where the nationals decided to install the headquarters, right? So this area, since the very beginning, was under the dominion of Franco troops. He also decided to install here the Capitanía General, that it was like the capital of Spain, right? For a few months in the year 1939, Burgos was the capital of Spain. That's why most of the monuments here were really good preserved. But if you go to the coast, you go to the area of Valencia with the bombs, most of the buildings were so deteriorated. So, as I told you before, here was the headquarters of Franco. So this area, since the very beginning, was in the national band.
Thank you. And there's another question as well. Somebody has said, we've just said that Burgos is very cold. What are the seasons like if we were coming to visit? When is the best time to come, I think, is probably the question.
From the month of May till the month of October, the weather is so beautiful because you are going to, well, now as you can see, it's winter time, but normally we have a clear sky, so blue. So if you are prepared just with a kind of coat, you're going to enjoy it. The best months from May to October. I don't recommend you to come at winter time because it's quite dark and it's really, really cold. So the best moment, summertime, of course. It's not too warm. Maybe on summertime, 32 degrees, 30, no more, right? So maybe in a day you will find 34, something like that. But that's something very, very, very special. So if you want to come to Burgos, that moment.
Another question, do many of the pilgrims who come through, or any walkers who come, do they stay in the city itself? Does it get very busy, or most of the albergues outside of the city?
Yes, well, normally we have plenty of hotels, but also most of the pilgrims, they want to enjoy the real Camino. So that's why they are normally staying in the refugee for the pilgrims, right? In the hostel, the pilgrims hostel. There are more than 150 beds, so it's no problem if you want to stay there. It's very difficult if you to find all of them completely crowded, except this year. Well, this year is not a normal year because due to the COVID, but this year is Holy Year. What means Holy Year? When the festivity of St. James is celebrated, remember, 25th of July, it's on Sunday, it's Holy Year, right? And those years are normally crowded. You cannot find a hotel normally on summertime. It's quite difficult. But this year, due to the COVID, I think it's going to be easy to find a space. And also, it's a special jubilar year. What does it mean? The Vatican have already give a special honor to the Burgos Cathedral in order to give special indulgences to the pilgrims who are going to Santiago, to the pilgrims who are visiting the city of Burgos. So if you are going to visit the city and do the Camino, I don't think you are going to find any problem. Anyway, if you stay in the hotel, and also if you stay in the refugees, because they are preparing with modern ones. Remember, modern refugees, nothing to do with the medieval times, right?
Okay, Almudena, thank you so much. That was wonderful. I don't think anybody else has any questions. Oh, there's just one more question coming.
Oh, yes, of course.
I know that, and I know this as well, that Burgos was famous for a political trial in the 1970s, I think it was, against ETA.
That's right.
Yeah, that was a really significant trial. How did the people of Burgos react to that, and where was the trial held, actually?
Well, in the town center, it's a palace, a kind of, it's a classicist palace. It is called Capitanía General. And it was the place where, remember, the headquarters of Franco were situated. Inside, it was also the palace for the most important militaries that were staying in Burgos. So it was a very protected place. That's the place where they decided to do those trials. Well, probably we don't want to say that because it is fair or unfair, because with the terrorist band here in Spain, we have already suffered so much, too many deaths. More than 1,000 Spanish people die because they didn't want to talk. We want a democracy society. We don't want to have a terrorist band. Probably those trials were not fair enough, probably. But remember, in that time, we were under a dictatorial system, so we were not allowed to ask for a trial in really democratic conditions. Anyway, remember, the ETA terrorist band had already been killing people in Burgos since the 20th century. A friend of my sister, a very close friend, the last one who they killed, was from Burgos, Antonio Tejada, and he died when he was only 30 years old by this terrorist band. So now we are happy, finally they stopped fighting. And well, it was history. Franco wanted to stop it in the quickest way, and that's why he did the trials. I don't know if I have already answered the question.
Thank you. That's great. And just one final question. How long does it take, do you think, to walk? I know this is probably going to depend on the speed of the walker. How long does it take to walk from Burgos to Santiago?
To Santiago. Okay, from Burgos to Santiago, there are 532 kilometers. I've walked from Leon to Santiago, and it took me 8 days. We were normally walking 35 kilometers, 30 kilometers per day. So if you're a person that are normally walking, that's quite good. But I will recommend you to have small periods, so you can divide the Camino in different days. I will take from Burgos. Where do you want to start? In Burgos or in Roncesvalles?
The question was from Borgos itself.
From Burgos. So you probably need to spend, if you want to also enjoy the different cities that you are visiting, if you take 15 days, that will be perfect, because you could stay in Burgos. It's a huge city. The next one will be Leon. So you are going to walk, but you also you need to have 3 days in order to recover your legs, right? So 15 days will be perfect. And remember, summertime, wintertime, some Japanese people are still walking and doing the Camino at wintertime, but they are really, really brave. Remember, I told you, wintertime under 0 degrees, so this is too much.
Freezing.